The Ghost in the Void. Captain Sarah Chen stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Phantom, her reflection barely visible in the crystalline viewport that separated her from the endless expanse of space. The experimental vessel hung silent in the darkness, its revolutionary dark glass hull absorbing every form of detection humanity had ever encountered. Even now, after 6 months of successful trials, the technology still seemed like magic. "Contact," Lieutenant Marcus Rivera whispered from his sensor station, his voice carefully controlled despite the tension evident in his shoulders. 3 vessels just emerged from FTL. Configuration unknown. Sarah's heart rate quickened, but her expression remained neutral. First contact. After decades of preparation, humanity would finally meet their galactic neighbors. "Show me," she ordered. The main display flickered to life, revealing 3 ships that defied human architectural convention. They resembled massive crystals, their surfaces refracting light in ways that made them appear both solid and ethereal simultaneously. Each vessel dwarfed the Phantom by at least a factor of 10. "They're scanning the system," Dr. Emily Wong reported from her science station. The engineer who had helped develop the Phantom's stealth systems allowed herself a small smile. "But they're not seeing us." The alien vessels moved with precision, their formation suggesting military training and advanced coordination. They swept the space around Jupiter's orbit methodically, passing within kilometers of the Phantom without showing any sign of detection. "They're broadcasting," Communications Officer James O'Neill announced. Well, you should hear this, Captain." A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English, though with unusual harmonics that suggested artificial translation. "To the primitive species of Sol system, we are the Meridian Alliance. Your radio transmissions have been monitored. Your system is now under our protection and jurisdiction. Respond with acceptance of our authority." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. 6 months of silent observation had taught them much about the Meridian Alliance, including their habit of protecting less advanced species right into subjugation. "Record response," she ordered. "Meridian Alliance vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Phantom. We respectfully decline your offer of protection." The crystalline ships suddenly halted their sweep pattern. "Impossible," the voice returned. "Our scans detect no vessels capable of transmission in this sector." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Check again." The Phantom's dark glass hull shifted from perfect absorption to mirror-perfect reflection in an instant. Where there had been empty space, the sleek form of humanity's most advanced vessel now gleamed in the sunlight. The effect, Sarah knew, would be dramatic, like a ghost materializing from nothing. "Impossible," the alien voice repeated, this time with an edge of concern. "Your technology level should not allow." "The Meridian Alliance has made several incorrect assumptions," Sarah interrupted. "First, that silence indicates inability rather than choice. Second, that your scanning technology represents the peak of advancement. And third, that humanity requires or desires your protection." The alien vessels began to move, attempting to surround the Phantom. Sarah watched calmly as their weapons charged, exactly as expected. The Meridian Alliance had a long history of responding to technological surprises with immediate attempts at capture or destruction. "Final warning," the alien voice declared. "Submit to inspection and technological assessment, or face immediate consequences." Sarah nodded to her weapons officer. "Show them consequence 1." The Phantom vanished again, not through its dark glass technology, but through its quantum displacement drive. The alien vessel's weapons fire passed through empty space as the human ship reappeared directly between them, its own weapons already charged. "The Meridian Alliance has grown accustomed to technological superiority," Sarah broadcast. "That era has ended. Return to your leadership with this message. Humanity is not primitive, not defenseless, and most importantly, not interested in your protection. We are, however, open to diplomatic relations between equals." The alien ships hung motionless for long moments, their weapons still charged but no longer targeting. Finally, The voice returned, its artificial tones unable to completely mask the underlying shock. This will be reported to the Council. We look forward to their response. Sarah replied. Phantom out. As the alien vessels retreated into FTL, Sarah turned to her crew. Send word to command. First contact achieved. And tell them. She paused, allowing herself another small smile. Tell them the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. Dr. Wong looked up from her readings. They'll be back, she said quietly. And next time, it won't be just 3 ships. Good, Sarah replied, watching the last trace of the alien vessels disappear. Because humanity has a lot more surprises to share. The Phantom's bridge fell silent as the crew contemplated what they had just initiated. Humanity's first step onto the galactic stage hadn't been with submissive acceptance or diplomatic caution, but with a clear demonstration that the old powers of space would need to reevaluate their assumptions. The game had changed, and the pieces were now in motion. Whispers of war. 2 weeks after the first encounter, the Phantom's prediction proved accurate. This time, 15 crystalline vessels emerged from FTL, their formations tighter and their weapons already primed. But Captain Chen's crew had used the intervening time well. They've improved their scanning arrays, Dr. Wong reported, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. Still can't detect us, but they're actually looking for the right things now. They learn fast. Sarah watched the tactical display as the Meridian fleet deployed in a spherical formation, clearly designed to prevent the escape tactics they'd witnessed before. They're also broadcasting on all frequencies, O'Neill added. But this time, it's different. The bridge speakers crackled with a new voice, deeper and carrying harmonics that suggested multiple speakers in perfect synchronization. UES Phantom. This is High Commander Vextol of the Meridian Alliance Security Council. Your previous demonstration has earned our attention. The Council offers you a choice. Share your stealth technology willingly and join the Alliance as a protected species, or we will be forced to take more direct action. Sarah exchanged glances with her XO, Commander David Park. He nodded slightly. They'd anticipated this response. Record, Sarah ordered. High Commander, humanity appreciates your offer. However, you seem to be operating under a continued misunderstanding. We are not here to prove ourselves worthy of your protection. We are here to establish diplomatic relations as equals. Equality must be earned. The alien voice responded immediately. Your single vessel's ability to evade our sensors is impressive. But who said we only have one vessel? Sarah interrupted. The tactical display suddenly bloomed with new signatures as 6 more human ships dropped their dark glass camouflage. Each had been stationed in the area for months, completely undetected by Alliance scanning technology. The Meridian Fleet's formation suddenly looked less like an encirclement and more like a target. Impossible. Vextol's voice carried genuine shock. Our long-range scans were exactly as effective as your short-range ones, Sarah completed. High Commander, humanity has been watching the galaxy for longer than you realize. We've seen how the Alliance treats its protected species. We've observed your technological development, your military doctrine, your political structures. We chose when and how to reveal ourselves. The Meridian ships began to shift formation, trying to adapt to the new tactical reality. But Sarah wasn't finished. Lieutenant Rivera, execute Protocol Nightfall. Across the vast expanse of space between Jupiter and Saturn, hundreds of automated defense platforms suddenly deactivated their stealth systems. The Meridian fleet found itself not just surrounded, but comprehensively outmaneuvered. Your council believes technology determines civilization's worth. Sarah continued. Very well. Our sensors have mapped every quantum signature of your vessels. We can track your ships through FTL. We can detect your stealth systems, predict your weapons' energy patterns, and bypass your strongest shields. Still interested in discussing equality? Silence stretched across space for long moments. When Vextol's voice returned, it carried a new tone. one that mixed anger with something approaching respect. The Council will need to convene on this matter. They have 48 hours, Sarah replied. After that, humanity will begin sharing our observations of Alliance activities with every species in your territory, including those you claim to protect. The threat was clear. Humanity could expose every manipulation, every hidden agenda the Alliance had carefully maintained over centuries. The Meridian ships began to retreat, their formation now defensive rather than aggressive. As the alien fleet disappeared into FTL, Commander Park stepped closer to Sarah's station. "They'll be back," he said quietly, "and next time it will be with everything they have." "No," Sarah replied, studying the tactical display where Dr. Wong was already analyzing the quantum signatures of the retreating ships. "Next time, they'll try something more subtle." The Alliance didn't maintain control of 5,000 systems through brute force alone. "Security alert from Earth Command," O'Neill called out. "Multiple diplomatic vessels from non-Alliance species requesting immediate contact. They're offering information about Alliance operations in their territories." Sarah nodded. The game was changing faster than even they had anticipated. The Alliance's iron grip on galactic politics had just received its first real challenge in centuries, and the ripples were already spreading. "Send word to command," she ordered. "Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. And get me a secure channel to the Phantom's sister ships. We need to be ready when the Alliance decides diplomacy isn't enough." As her crew carried out their orders, Sarah allowed herself a moment to appreciate the irony. The Alliance had dismissed humanity as primitive based on their limited observations. They never considered that perhaps humans had simply been careful about what they allowed to be observed. The real question now was how the galaxy's supreme power would handle the realization that they were no longer supreme. History suggested the answer wouldn't be peaceful, but humanity hadn't spent decades preparing for peace. They had prepared for something far more interesting: the breaking storm. The Alliance Council's response came not with warships, but with silence. 3 weeks of it. For most species, this might have been cause for relief. For Captain Chen and the UES Phantom's crew, it was confirmation of their worst predictions. "Quantum disturbance," River announced, his voice cutting through the bridge's quiet efficiency. "Massive. Bigger than anything we've recorded." Dr. Wong's hands flew across her console, her eyes widening. "They've been busy," she muttered. "I'm counting over 300 ships emerging from FTL. Multiple design signatures, not just Alliance vessels." Sarah studied the tactical display as it filled with hostile contacts. The Alliance had called in their vassals, their protected species, creating a fleet that would have overwhelmed any normal opposition. But the Phantom and humanity were anything but normal. "New transmission," O'Neill reported. "Multiple channels, multiple languages." The bridge speakers came alive with a chorus of voices, each speaking in their native tongue, but synchronized in their message. "To the human vessel Phantom and all Earth forces, your deception and threats against the Meridian Alliance end now. Surrender immediately or face the combined might of civilized space." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "They still think we've been showing them everything we have." "Command, execute solar protocol." Across the solar system, humanity's true defensive network activated. Not just the platforms they'd revealed before, but the quantum-linked satellites that had been watching Alliance space for decades. The massive holographic display above the bridge lit up with real-time data from every Alliance system within 50 light-years. "Send the package," Sarah ordered. O'Neill pressed a single button, and across the enemy fleet, ships began powering down. Shield systems failed. Weapons went offline. Engines sputtered and died. The Alliance's massive armada transformed from an unstoppable force into floating debris in under 30 seconds. "Quantum virus deployed," Dr. Wong confirmed. "Their systems never stood a chance. When you spend centuries using the same base code." "They're broadcasting again," O'Neill interrupted. "It's different this time." A single voice filled the bridge, trembling with barely controlled rage. "What have you done?" "Exactly what we warned you we could do," Sarah replied calmly. "Every ship in your fleet runs on quantum processors based on technology you stole from the Arcturus species 3 centuries ago. Technology you never fully understood, let alone improved. We didn't just study your ships, High Commander. We studied your history." She stood from her command chair, pacing before the tactical display. "Every species you've protected was forced to integrate Alliance technology into their ships. Technology you could control, monitor, and disable at will. It was a brilliant strategy, until you encountered someone who understood it better than you do." The enemy fleet hung powerless in space, their ships now little more than elaborate containers. "Your choice is simple," Sarah continued. "Real diplomatic relations. Actual equality, not your version of it. Or we distribute the quantum virus to every system in Alliance space. How long do you think your control will last when every protected species realizes they can free themselves with a single command?" Silence stretched across space. Sarah could almost feel the panic spreading through the Allied fleet as their commanders realized the full extent of their vulnerability. Everything they'd relied on, every advantage they'd built their empire upon, had been turned against them. "The Council," the voice finally returned, all pretense of strength gone, "requests a diplomatic envoy." "Granted," Sarah replied. "But not here. Not in our system. We'll meet on Arcturus Prime, with representatives from every species affected by Alliance protection. It's time for the galaxy to have an honest conversation about its future." As the transmission ended, Commander Park stepped forward. "Think they'll actually follow through?" "They don't have a choice," Sarah answered, watching as the Allied fleet initiated emergency protocols, their backup systems slowly bringing their ships back to minimal power. "We've just demonstrated that their military superiority was an illusion. Their political control depends entirely on maintaining that illusion. They'll come to the table, if only to try to find a way to turn this situation to their advantage." "And when they do?" Dr. Wong asked. "Then we show them why humanity chose to reveal itself now, at this moment." Sarah turned to her crew, seeing the same mix of determination and anticipation on every face. "We didn't develop our technology to dominate the galaxy. We developed it to change it. The Alliance built an empire on stolen innovation and stifled progress. Humanity is going to show them, show everyone, what real innovation looks like." The Phantom's engines hummed to life as Sarah returned to her command chair. "Set course for Arcturus Prime. It's time to help the galaxy remember how to dream again." Echoes of revolution. The Grand Council chamber of Arcturus Prime hadn't seen this many species gathered in one place for over 3 centuries. Representatives from 37 civilizations filled the ancient hall, their voices a mixture of hope and fear. At the center of it all, the UES Phantom hung in orbit above, a visible reminder of how drastically the galaxy's power structure had shifted in just a few weeks. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the assembled delegates, her uniform stark against the ornate backdrop of Arcturian architecture. Behind her, a holographic display showed real-time data from across Alliance space, hundreds of systems where protected species were already beginning to test their newfound independence. "The Meridian Alliance claims we've destabilized the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "They're right. But stability built on suppression isn't peace. It's just delayed conflict." High Commander Vextall rose from his seat, his crystalline form catching the light. "You understand nothing of galactic stability. The Alliance has prevented wars, stopped genocides, by becoming the only ones capable of committing them." Sarah countered. A new hologram appeared, showing historical data that the Alliance had tried to erase. The Nyrix Rebellion, the Centauri Purge, the silence of Vega. Every time a species came close to matching Alliance technology, they were suddenly struck by mysterious system failures or tragic accidents. Murmurs spread through the chamber as long-buried truths came to light. Sarah continued, her voice steady. "But that's not why we're here today. We're here because humanity is offering an alternative. Dr. Wong stepped forward, activating a new holographic display. The quantum technology the Alliance has relied on for centuries. It's capable of so much more. They've been using a fusion reactor as a paperweight. The display showed new configurations, new possibilities that made even the Alliance scientists lean forward in spite of themselves. Every species here has been forced to use Alliance-approved technology, Wong explained. But what if you could develop your own? What if you could innovate without fear of mysterious failures? Impossible, an Alliance scientist declared. The quantum matrices are too unstable without our control protocols. You mean these protocols? Wong smiled as she brought up the Alliance's base code, and then showed how humanity had not just broken it, but fundamentally improved it. Your control wasn't protecting stability. It was preventing progress. Sarah watched as understanding spread through the chamber. Humanity isn't here to replace the Alliance as the galaxy's dominant power. We're here to end the very concept of technological dominance. Every species in this room will receive full access to quantum development protocols, not Alliance versions. True open-source technology that you can modify, improve, and share. The chamber erupted in chaos. Alliance representatives shouted protests while other species began talking excitedly among themselves. Through it all, Sarah stood calmly, waiting for the inevitable question. It came from a small reptilian species that had been under Alliance protection for generations. Why? Why would humans share such power? Because isolation breeds stagnation, Sarah answered. The Alliance's greatest crime wasn't their control. It was convincing the galaxy that innovation was dangerous, that progress had to be managed. They turned the most ambitious species in known space into careful, fearful shadows of themselves. She turned to face the Alliance delegation directly. Humanity hid our capabilities not out of fear, but because we wanted to understand what we were dealing with. Now we do, and we choose to break the cycle. You'll destroy everything, Vextol warned. Without our guidance, species will make mistakes, Sarah finished. They'll have conflicts. They'll solve problems in different ways. That's not destruction, High Commander. That's growth. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just offering technology. They were offering freedom. Real freedom, with all its risks and rewards. The choice is yours, Sarah concluded. Continue under Alliance protection, or join humanity in building something new. A galaxy where innovation isn't controlled by any single power, where progress isn't permission-based, where species rise or fall based on their own choices, not someone else's agenda. As the delegates began to discuss among themselves, Commander Park approached Sarah quietly. Think they'll take the risk? Sarah watched as species that had been enemies under Alliance rule began to talk directly to each other, sharing ideas and possibilities for the first time in centuries. They already have. The moment we proved the Alliance could be challenged, everything changed. Now we just have to help them remember how to fly on their own. Above them, the Phantom continued its orbit, its dark glass hull reflecting the light of Arcturus Prime's twin suns, but it was no longer a symbol of humanity's power. Instead, it had become something far more important. A reminder that the greatest strength lies not in controlling progress, but in sharing it. Dawn of a new era. 6 months after the Arcturus Prime Conference, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the Phantom's observation deck, watching ships of dozens of different species moving through the newly established Quantum Commons, a neutral space where civilizations could freely share technological innovations. The scene before her would have been unimaginable half a year ago. Former Alliance vassals working alongside independent species, each contributing their unique perspectives to the galaxy's technological renaissance. Incoming transmission from the Nyrix fleet. O'Neill's voice came through her comm. They'd successfully adapted our quantum shielding to their bioorganic hull designs. They're asking permission to share the modifications with the Centauri. Remind them they don't need our permission, Sarah replied, smiling slightly. That's the whole point. The transition hadn't been entirely smooth. 3 Alliance worlds had attempted to maintain the old power structure by force, leading to brief but intense conflicts. But each time, the response came not from humanity alone, but from a coalition of newly empowered species. The message was clear. The era of single power dominance was over. Captain to the bridge. Commander Park's voice carried an unusual edge of urgency. The Alliance Council is making their announcement. When Sarah reached the bridge, the main screen showed the historic broadcast. High Commander Vextal, looking notably more subdued than during their first encounter, stood before the assembled representatives of all known spacefaring species. After 6 centuries of leadership, he began, his harmonics carrying a mix of resignation and acceptance. The Meridian Alliance formally dissolves its protectorate status over all member worlds. In its place, we propose membership in the Galactic Innovation Network as equals among equals. The announcement was a formality. The real power shift had already happened in laboratories and shipyards across the galaxy. But symbols mattered, especially for species emerging from centuries of suppression. Incoming data burst, Dr. Wong reported, her eyes widening as she read the transmission. They're releasing their complete technological archives. Everything they've collected over 600 years, including, she paused, looking up in surprise, including technologies they deemed too dangerous to develop. Send copies to every member of the network, Sarah ordered. Let them decide for themselves what's too dangerous. That's what freedom means. The bridge crew worked in efficient silence, processing the massive data transfer that represented centuries of hoarded knowledge finally being shared. But Sarah's attention was drawn to a small alert in the corner of her display, a quantum signature she'd never seen before.